The most exciting 2 minutes in sports. It's time for an update on the 2025 Kentucky Derby. 10 horses already at Churchill Downs, 10 more on the way. And Admire Daytona is already at Churchill Downs. Luxor Cafe shipping in on April 23rd. We're going to talk about River Thames, his latest decision to wait for the Preakness. Joe Ramos going to be riding in the Kentucky Derby. Irad Ortiz has his mount, and Sandman works out over the Churchill Downs surface. But we start off with news. Irad Ortiz is going to be riding Publisher in the Kentucky Derby. He's off River Thames. Of course, River Thames, they announced on Tuesday that River Thames will be pointing to the Preakness. He's going to withdraw from Kentucky Derby consideration. So we've still got 22 horses under consideration for the Kentucky Derby, with Built and Neoquos next up on the list. Now, Joe Ramos rode Flying Mohawk in the Jeff Ruby Stakes. He'll come back and ride him again in the Kentucky Derby. Of course, this will be on the dirt after running on the synthetic at the Jeff Ruby Stakes. Now, Sandman hit the track at Churchill Downs. Here's his latest work, the Big Gray out on the track and looking good. You know, he's been at Churchill Downs after running that last race at Oaklawn Park. Goes for trainer Mark Cassie, who's 0 for 10 in the Kentucky Derby. Meanwhile, the Japanese contingent continues their preparations. Let's go back to the UAE Derby, a dogfight down the stretch. We've got Admire Daytona on the inside, getting battle from a couple of horses, another Japan horse on the outside, and down the middle, Heart of Honor. But Admire Daytona getting that nose in front at the finish line, a strong finish in that race in the UAE Derby. Now, Admire Daytona is at Churchill Downs. Here he is getting over the track. You know, he's going to have to turn around kind of quickly after that hard-fought race in the UAE Derby, but at least he shipped over early. Now, the sire is Dre Fong, who won the Breeders' Cup Sprint for trainer Bob Baffert, but there is some stamina influences on the female side. They did pay the late fee payment of $6,000 to make Admire Daytona eligible for the Kentucky Derby and the Triple Crown. Now, Admire Daytona has ran 6 times, 2 wins, 2 seconds. And on the mare's side, Shackelford, you remember him, he was trained by Dale Romans. He ran some big races in Florida, ran in the Kentucky Derby. Admire Daytona with 2 wins and 2 seconds, almost $700,000 in earnings. What I like is he's ran in some big fields. He started off his career with 4 16-horse races. He did lose to Luxor Cafe a couple of times. And of course, Luxor Cafe also pointing for the Kentucky Derby. Now let's take a look at Luxor Cafe. He won his most recent race on March 29th. That was by 5 lengths. Kind of came around and drew off down the lane, was in kind of middle of the pack, and then bursted clear down the lane. Luxor Cafe with a good turn of speed, a nice final 3 furlongs and 36 and 3 for the final 3 furlong fractions. Now let's go back to the Hyacinth Stakes. He defeated Admire Daytona in that one. Admire Daytona, after running in the Hyacinth Stakes, came back and won the UAE Derby. So Luxor Cafe has faced some good horses, very similar to recent runners from Japan in recent years. Now here's another one where Luxor Cafe went at it on November 23rd against Admire Daytona. Those two went at it the length of the stretch, with Luxor Cafe pulling clear late, but that was really a good tooth and neck battle. You know, both these horses lightly raced, both of them I think still improving, and both of them have that strong Japan conditioning of workouts and races to get ready for this race. Luxor Cafe is going to be arriving April 23rd to Churchill Downs. He does have to go through 42 hours of quarantine in Chicago before going to Churchill Downs. Luxor Cafe coming to the Kentucky Derby. Now, so far, 6 starts for him, 4 wins. He's defeated Admire Daytona twice. He's got a couple of stakes wins. He seems to have the class. He's by American Pharoah. He's out of another kind of American distance sire More Than Ready, who does seem to get a lot of turfers, but Luxor Cafe definitely, I think, intrigues at a price at 15-1. Now, when you look at some of the factors we've been profiling in our handicapping videos, on the John White strike system, Admire Daytona with 0 strikes, Luxor Cafe only with 1 strike, so they definitely fit that profile. And the final fractions theories, Luxor Cafe qualifies in his last race in Japan, the final 3/8 of a mile in 36.60, the final 1/8 of a mile in a very fast 12 seconds. So he's got the speed figures and the raw times to make him a top 7 or 8 contender at Churchill Downs for Luxor Cafe. Dosage, Luxor Cafe is a little bit of high, 5.00, so he's a non-qualifier on that. But Admire Daytona has a low dosage index, 1.86. Make sure to watch those handicapping videos. We're doing more of them as we highlight some of the handicapping factors for the 2025 Kentucky Derby. But I think overall, both these horses have good overall pedigrees to get that mile and a quarter distance. Now, some of the upcoming races we've got and dates headlining the Kentucky Derby. Post positions will be drawn on Saturday, April the 26th. Pedigree show with Jessica Tugwell. We're going to go over all of the contenders after the field has been announced on April 29th. You can join us live at 7 o'clock Central or leave your questions. Watch the replay. We've got the Kentucky Oaks on May 2nd, Pat Day Mile on May 3rd, and the Kentucky Derby. 3-year-olds going on 1.25 miles, 126 pounds, the first Saturday in May, coming up in just a few weeks, inside 18 days now. The Kentucky Derby Pedigree Show, Jessica Tugwell is a national pedigree analyst. She has a newsletter. She analyzes pedigrees for owners for the sales and also looks at Kentucky Derby pedigrees. Triple Crown Prospectus comes your way every Monday, 2,000 words through the Belmont Stakes. We started up in January, and we profile some of the contenders and the 3-year-olds along the trail. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Are you ready for the Kentucky Derby? Smash that like button. And remember, we've got a video up on the final fractions along with a free spreadsheet to look at all of the contenders. The spreadsheet is free. You can just look for it in the link in the description of the final fractions video. We've also got a video on the John White system to identify Kentucky Derby contenders. He uses 8 factors to look at Kentucky Derby factors. 80% success rate since 1973. There's a spreadsheet with all of the contenders in that video, so make sure to watch that as you start your handicapping. Remember, we're trying to give you the data so you can pick your own Kentucky Derby winner this year in 2025, give you some more ways to look at the data and analyze the contenders for the Kentucky Derby. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. And remember, that's still a horse race. D. Wayne Lucas always says, people have opinions, horses have the facts.